Alright guys, this one's going to be doing a review today. This one's going to be doing a review for Game of Thrones. This one's going to be doing another discussion video for today. We're going to be talking about the franchise a little bit. I want to kind of give an update on it because there has been a lot of information coming out. And I've heard about this for the last week or so, and I've had some thoughts on it, but I figured I'd kind of, savor it, kind of think about it a little bit, and then kind of come back and kind of give my thoughts on what I think about this whole franchise right now and kind of what they're doing with it. So, we just had the release of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which is the first episode. They're only doing weekly releases, and these are pretty short episodes. They're only going to be 30-some minutes each, so they're going to be pretty to the point. There's only 5 other ones left, and then that'll be that. There is a second season on the way as well. So they were confident enough to make a second season even before getting people to see the first season, which I find very interesting, but they are very confident in the first episode. Now, you guys know for me, and this is no secret here, I was not exactly big on the first episode. I thought it very much kind of took the franchise in a direction that I just wasn't really prepared for, I guess, and I know a lot of book readers say that's how it is. It's comedy based. It's it's got a little bit of that edge to it, you know what I mean? And I'm one that loves comedy shows, you know what I mean? I love it. And I love when sometimes you can mix comedy with drama. I think that's really good. But the way that they did it in this show just felt like they were trying to be funny. Like doing an epic, Game of Thrones soundtrack and then it cuts to him taking a crap by a tree. That's not, to me that doesn't work. And you know what's funny? I'm not alone in that because it sounds like George R. R. Martin, he made a statement about it the other day and he said, okay, we didn't need to do that, So I'm like, okay, so right there, I should be able to say objectively that is not a good scene. The guy that created Game of Thrones is even saying that was very random and strange and didn't make any sense. So, I think at that point it makes my opinion pretty objective, I would say, if the creator is coming out and saying something against it. So, listen, the one thing I do appreciate about the show, and I recognize that a lot of people have been talking about this in this type of way, is that a lot of people are saying, well, Dan, here's the thing, though. The show is finally getting into that character drama again, rather than just making another show about going after the throne. And you know what's funny? In that aspect, I understand what people mean. Yes, House of the Dragon, though I really like it, it is the same type of show as the original, going after the throne and the two sides and what's right, what's wrong, this and that, This show is more so character driven. It's about, a knight trying to, become something and, bringing this kid along and kind of, having a character dynamic, you know what I mean? Which is not something that we've had on Game of Thrones since the early seasons of the original show. So I get what people mean by that. I get that's the perspective of the show and why some people like it. I just kind of hope that they focus on the character dynamic more rather than trying to be funny and trying to have, quirky lines, because that's all I got from the first episode, if I'm being honest. So I hope they can focus more on the bond, because as I mentioned in the review, and the review wasn't just me ranting on it because I didn't like the style. There were things I did compliment, and one of the biggest things I think that will help this show out, hopefully, for somebody like me that's interested in knowing more about the characters, somebody that's never read the books, is I'm interested in knowing more about these characters, because I do like Sir Duncan the Cole. I think he's a good character so far, and I do like Egg. I think he's a cool kid. So if you can give me good writing between the two of them as the journey goes on, I might like the other episodes better. I just found the first one tried too hard to be funny, and it wasn't enjoyable after a while. I was just like, okay, damn, I'm trying to get into this scene, and then you cut to, or, bro crapping, or this and that, it just, I don't know, it's not my type of entertainment. I like comedy that feels a bit more organic than that feels a bit more natural than that, and that's not necessarily what this episode gave me, you know what I mean? I'm all down for comedy, just, you gotta do it right, and I don't think they did it right, at least in my opinion. But I'm still going to give the other episodes a shot because people talk this story up, and it sounds like this show is about to kick into high gear and have some really good character dynamics. And that's what I'm here for. That's 100% what I'm here for, and that's what I'm reviewing it for. So I will keep going, and hope that maybe it was just kind of a rough start, and then maybe it gets really good for me. Who knows? I'm willing to give it a chance. The only time you'll catch me saying, okay, this show is trash, is if I watch the whole first season and I don't like anything about it, pretty much, then, okay, maybe we'll revisit the topic by then, you know what I mean? But until then, I'm gonna give the rest of the season a shot, see what's going on with it, and then I'll kind of decide what I'm doing with the season 2, you know what I mean? But that's kind of my thoughts on Knight of Seven Kingdoms, kind of an updated thought after about a week of sitting on it. But I wanted to talk about the franchise, though, in general a little bit here, because they've also announced that we're getting an Aegon movie, which is interesting. I don't know really any details about it aside from just that. I don't really know what the deal is with that, why they're going the movie approach with it. I guess maybe budgetary reasons, maybe there's, some big things they got to do there. I know it's based off of something else from the books, so apparently that's going to be a big deal. So there's a movie for Game of Thrones coming up. That's the word on the street right now. So that should be interesting. Now we also have, on top of everything else, we have a sequel series that they are talking about with Arya. Now, Arya is apparently getting her own spin-off series. That's a big one that they say is apparently in development. I love Arya, I really do. My only question about this is, what is the point? That's my only question. I'm definitely going to check it out, but what is the point of giving Arya a spin-off? That's my big question. This is a character that wrapped up like 7 years ago. Like, what is the purpose of giving Arya a spin-off? Now, I recognize at the end of Game of Thrones, she went off to see what else was out there, and that could potentially set up, her journey out there for a few seasons and, do something like that. I'm good with it. It just, the story has to be good, because unfortunately with Arya, the thing is about her is that I love her character, but sometimes the storylines that she's involved in, like the Faceless storyline and stuff, it just wasn't for me, you know what I mean? So that one, it's hard to say. I love Arya as a character, but I sometimes don't like the arcs that she's in. And this would be non-book material because this is a sequel to the end of Game of Thrones. And George R. R. Martin still hasn't written the last 2 books of Game of Thrones. So, this would, honestly, this would very much be just what it is. That would be the journey, this and that. And in terms of kind of where I would sit on an Arya series, I'm willing to give that one a shot. I'm willing to see that one out. I think it's very interesting that they're doing something that's non-book related so that everybody doesn't know what's going on, like it's going to be a, up in the air thing. I think that allows it to have some originality and some interesting stuff. It all depends on the writing for me. But in terms of a leading character for Arya, I'm all in with that. Like, I will check that out for sure. Now, apparently there was supposed to be, and we talked about this for many years, there was supposed to be a Game of Thrones Jon Snow spinoff called Snow, apparently. It was called Snow, and that was what it was going to be called. And apparently it was going to follow him after the events of Season 8. There was a plot release that came out for this, and I'm going to mention it here, and I'm sure nobody minds if I do, because it's a trash plot. I don't think anybody's going to like this. Apparently the story of what that spinoff was going to be is Jon, post-Season 8, depressed, treating people like crap, apparently ruining his friendship with Tormund, and just being a depressed nothing, on the wall, you know what I mean? And apparently the show would have dragged on for a while, and there would have been no action, no big, cinematography stuff, nothing. It would have just been a low-budget type thing, and then apparently, at the end of the show, Jon would end up killing himself. That is where the show would end. He would be taking himself out at the end, and Jon would die. Yeah. I'm glad they didn't do it. And now I understand why Kit Harington didn't want to do it either. Because apparently, they wrote out the show, they wrote out the concept, and they gave it to Kit, and he was just like, no, I'm not doing that, So I respect that. So, honestly, at this point, I say you ruined it. With the Jon Snow idea, no, now I don't want you to ever do a Jon spinoff, because I'd be worried that they're going to kill him off. I didn't think that's something we'd have to worry about, but apparently we do. So, I would say now, no, do not do a Jon Snow spinoff. Do not do it. Honestly, that's a terrible concept. When I heard about that, I was just like, what? Like, you're going to kill him off? Like, no, that's ridiculous. So, no, I am not down for that. I am absolutely not. That does make me kind of almost a bit more confident now that the reason that they're doing this Arya show is because they're not going to kill her off, because they've approved it, you know what I mean? And it sounds like they're going forward with it. So I would say Jon's spinoff, yeah, good call on not doing it. I'm going to miss Jon as a character, but hell, he's been gone for 7 years. What's that going to do now anyway? I'm used to not watching Jon Snow on my TV anymore, you know what I mean? And if it means that I can keep the character alive in canon, then I'm good with that, because you can't kill Jon Snow. You already killed him in season 5, right? Killed him, and then you brought him back. There's no way you could do that all over again. There's absolutely no way you could do that. So I'm good with just, leaving his story as it is. Now, we've also got, obviously, House of the Dragon, which is ongoing. That's going to be ending with season 4. We're going to be getting season 3 this summer, and we're going to be getting season 4 probably in 2 years, 2028. And George R. R. Martin apparently confirmed, and this is a big thing I remember him saying, he does not have a good relationship with the writer of that show. Apparently, they are not on the greatest terms. Which is unfortunate because it means that, there's a chance that House of the Dragon could end bad because they're probably not going to do what George wants them to do, right? And that is, some people say, oh, well, who cares? He didn't even finish his own books. Let them do what they want. Yeah, but the problem is, House of the Dragon not having the main guy behind it, that is a concern because that means that the guy that's seeing out the vision of your franchise isn't involved. It's like when Robert Kirkman left The Walking Dead. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, whoa, like, what? Like, he's not involved anymore? What's going to happen, And then it kind of turned more mediocre, you know what I mean, than the early seasons, right? Always having the creator there, you're always going to get your best material. You're just gonna because, they're the ones that know their own franchise the best, right? They're the ones that know their own characters the best, So at that point, it's like, okay, well, this may not be as good, but, let's see what happens, And that's kind of where I'm at with House of the Dragon, is I'm kind of like, okay, this probably won't be as good as I originally thought it was going to be, but, it could be still enjoyable. It won't be, like, probably faithful like it would have been, you know what I mean? But that is unfortunate that the writer and George R. R. Martin are not on the greatest terms. They just don't agree on a lot of things, and apparently it's not a good relationship from what he said. I'm surprised he was even allowed to say that, but it's George R. R. Martin. He can do whatever he wants, you know what I mean? I'm sure there's rules to certain things, but he can do whatever he wants. It is his franchise after all. I'm sure his rules are pretty stretched out in terms of his capabilities and what he can do, you know what I mean? So that's kind of what's been going on with Game of Thrones. My opinion on the franchise is this. Do what you want. It's fine. I'll watch whatever you put out, I'm loyal to it. I grew up on it. Kind of shameful to say considering the kind of show it was, but I grew up on it. I'm not gonna lie to you. Listen, I'm good with whatever. Just make sure the writing's good. That's all I want. Make sure the writing's good. Because Game of Thrones is a franchise. It is. It always has been. It was a book. It was a show. It was a this. It was a that, Like, it's always been a franchise, so I don't mind it continuing as a franchise. My only thing is George R. R. Martin better approve the things, because I'll have less respect for what they do that isn't approved by him. You know what I mean? Like, it sounds like he's good with this Arya thing, it sounds like he's good with Night of the Seven Kingdoms, and it sounds like he's good with, whatever else they're going to be doing. But he wasn't good with the Snow show, and he isn't good with House of the Dragon. Which is interesting, because House of the Dragon is kind of more my style of show than Night of the Seven Kingdoms, but at the same time, I've only seen one episode of Night of the Seven Kingdoms. You know what I mean? That could change. So it's very interesting. There's a lot going on with this franchise right now. It kind of just exploded in 2026. There's a lot going on with Game of Thrones. It feels really relevant again. Like, because for a few years there, it really, like, there was, like, nothing going on. This year is a big year for Game of Thrones. It's a really big one. So, yeah, I'm all down with it. I'm all down with it as long as the writing's good. That's where I'm at with the franchise. I'm all right with it. I think it's definitely doing a better job than the Walking Dead franchise right now, just because at least they're doing things that are like, characters we want to see and different things like that. They're trying new things and they're, trying to be unique and stuff like that, not trying to stay in the same bubble all the time, and I appreciate that. So, I think Game of Thrones franchise, where I kind of stand on it, is I'm going to cover what comes out. I will obviously voice my opinion on the things I don't like, because there are things I'm not liking about the franchise right now. But I'm going to try my best to kind of see out what the plan is here, to kind of see what's going on with it. I know we at least got a few more years left of this franchise for sure, because there's going to be a good few more seasons of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, obviously 2 more seasons of, House of the Dragon, and then this Arya spinoff. So we're going to be with this franchise for a while. So, and I'm all here for it as long as the writing's good. You know what I mean? That's genuinely where I'm at. So let me know your thoughts. Post your comments down below, guys. Let me know what you all think. And of course, if you're new to the channel and you enjoy videos like this, make sure to click subscribe button so you don't miss any of the videos. Make sure to follow me on Dan's Reviews Official on Instagram, guys. And of course, I'll see you guys really soon for more videos very soon. Enjoy the rest of your day, guys, and peace out.
Born in the dark alleys, city of concrete. His reviews blowing up, never taste defeat. Walking Dead dissected every plot twist beat. World gone mad, TV junkies hit a treat. Typing up scripts, marathon through the night. His opinions hit harder than a street fight scene. Every episode, brain sharper than a knife. He's the beacon of critique, shedding TV light.